You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans that just love talking about the Pack. We're not getting into all the national sports media nonsense. We're sticking to real football, diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season, and sorting through the draft, drama, and dreams of the offseason. If y'all want to support the podcast, please spike that like button for us right now. Most importantly, head on over to YouTube, type in Packers Talk Network, and hit that bright red subscribe button. Seriously, though, go do that right now. I know you hear that all the time. It's very helpful. We would love it if you would subscribe. We love all of our subscribers. I love hanging out with you guys every week. Monday night, 9:30, streaming live, talking Pack. And we're now here in the offseason, so we have a lot to get through before we get real Packers football again. But we're going to get through it, guys, and there's going to be a lot of fun along the way. I'm certain of this because we've done it before, so we're going to do it again. And, there's a lot to obviously get through tonight as we talk about a disastrous end to the season in Chicago. We're going to get through that, get all that off our chest. Obviously, we've got to talk about some hot seats, maybe all of the hot seats. Whose seat is the hottest? What seats are hot? Are some seats not hot? Is one not hot? Well, we gotta get through that. Got to go through that. And then, what are you hoping for this offseason? What makes the change? And these are big questions. These are big topics. We got to get through it, guys. A lot of big emotions here. I know that's true. I certainly had a shameless tweet storm about it, and I will admit right now that I am a sore loser, and that's fine. Totally cool with that. But first, let's get into some business, cover that. Our show is once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as Bucks tickets, Brewers tickets, Summerfest tickets, all those tickets that are now more relevant than Packers tickets for several months. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Remember, support all those local businesses, Wisconsin and otherwise. Tim, sir, I will wish you a good evening, but I do understand that maybe that's a little bit inaccurate.
Yeah.
You all right, man?
I'm doing better. It's 2 days after the disaster in Chicago. Still feel really awful. Still really pissed off about the game. But, getting through it, getting through my thoughts and emotions. And I guess we're here for our weekly therapy session. So I can hear it in your voice. Nothing good came out of that game, huh? And another playoff failure, meltdown, choke job, whatever you want to call it. It's just the same thing over and over again. And it's not just, I know everybody wants to blame LaFleur, but this goes back to McCarthy. Hell, their meltdowns, Mike Sherman, right? Like, it's a Packer thing, and we have to endure it. And it seems like they just can't lose in a normal way in the playoffs. Well, here we are. Off-season starting a whole lot sooner than we thought, and yeah, there's a lot to get through after that game and this season. That was just I don't even know how to describe it. Like a roller coaster for the most part, and then it just completely flamed out after the Denver game. And here we are. They won 9 games and they lost in the wild card game again. That ain't good enough. For the place that used to call itself Title Town, that ain't good enough. Like,
it's not Title Town behavior.
No, and it hasn't been. So where do we go from here? Like, where are we? It's just, there's a lot. If we would have done this podcast after the game, first of all, I think we would have been thrown off of YouTube and every other platform. We would have been cursing up a storm, and they would have shut us down.
At least have the warning up. Are you sure you want to listen to this crap?
Yeah, it would have been bad. And we talked last week about the LaFleur. Should he be back? What should they do? And I think we were both on board with yeah, he should be back, but they need some changes, and there's things that we're concerned about. After that game, Anybody that wants to say he should be fired, I really don't. I don't have a great argument against it anymore. I can see both ways, but the people that want him fired, I can't tell you you're dead wrong about it. How does he see his way out of this? And it looks like they're going to keep him. I don't know. There's going to be changes to the staff. I think that's absolutely going to happen. Now, how much changes on the staff we don't know. It could be a lot. It could just be some position coaches, which I don't think is enough, but it's going to tell us a lot what he does as far as the staff goes. But I think a lot of this is just baked into the organization, not just Matt LaFleur, but this is just an organization-wide cloud that kind of hangs over them at playoff time. And Matt's got to kind of change what he does and who he is as a head coach. He does, I know there's a lot of people that don't want to hear this, but he does a lot of things well as a head coach.
He does.
There's weaknesses and there's things that pop up continually and that he hasn't gotten corrected. Can he do that? I don't know. And I know a lot of people are saying it's 7 years now and, no head coaches at this point had won a Super Bowl once you're 7 years in. I get that, but I kind of look at this as it's 3 years because you had the Aaron Rodgers years. You did the reset to a new quarterback, a younger team. It was supposed to be a rebuild, and your rebuild's gotten into the playoffs for 3 years. I think they're kind of 3 years in. Regardless, not good enough. 9 wins with this roster this year was not good enough. And I know the injuries set in, especially, after Thanksgiving, they just got hammered, and it was key guys, right? I get all that. And I can hear the injuries. But they blew 2 games in Chicago, regular season and playoffs, that you can't lose those football games. I don't care who's on the field, who's standing on the sideline, who's got a torn ACL.
You can't lose a 21-6 lead in the fourth quarter.
No.
You should be able to limp to that win.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's the head coach, it's the defensive coordinator, it's the special teams coordinator, it's the players, it's the execution, it's the roster that was given to them by the general manager. Everybody's at fault. But a lot of it ultimately falls on your head coach. And you have to find a way out of that game with a victory. There's no way you can lose there. It just can't happen. And they did. And you and I going back to after the Denver game, that was a tough podcast to do because we both felt like Micah Parsons went down and the other injuries that came out of that game. We didn't see Zach
Parsons, Tom Watson, all at the same time. It felt like that was the end.
It felt like that was the end. It felt like I didn't have any Super Bowl hopes or any deep playoff hopes after that. But it was like they're going to be a playoff team. And they got to this point. It was like, just beat Chicago, right? Just beat Chicago and get through it. And
you
whatever
have Chicago
happens
on the ropes 21-6 in the fourth quarter. I don't care what the circumstances are. Win that damn game.
Right.
I don't care if we're going for a Super Bowl with this preseason. Just win that stinking game, man. That's
just win. Oof. That shouldn't happen. So there is a ton of soul searching that has to be done by everybody in that organization. And policy, obviously, with some big decisions coming up. Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur, the players, it falls on everyone. Things have to be changed. And I don't expect the head coach to – it's still possible we find out later this week that they decided to move in another direction or whatever. They couldn't come to terms on the contract. I think he's going to be back. I think if something were to happen, it would have happened today, Monday, as we talk, because they got to get into head coaching interviews. There's 7 or 8 other teams that are looking for coaches. You got to get to it. So I think something would have happened. It seems like the signs are he's coming back. But there needs to be a deep dive on everything they do to figure out why this continues to happen. And it's the playoff meltdowns, but it's why did you only win 9 games? Why did you go in on a 5-game? And we can throw out the Vikings game. So you went on a 4-game losing streak. Why are you just not getting to the playoffs playing good football and able to go from there and take the next step as a team? What is going on? And you can change coaches, you can change coordinators, and that may help and that may do a lot for you. But there's things that are just fundamental issues in this organization that need to be addressed. And until that's done, until there's real change, like changing the special teams coordinator ain't going to get you whole. It's going to maybe get you some improvement. It's not going to get you where you need to go. And changing the offensive line coach or the offensive coordinator, like that's great and all. You can change it, but like it's deeper than that. It's much deeper than that. That's kind of where I'm at.
And I'll piggyback on that. And I think you might have probably watched one of the same things that I did. I watched Mike Wall's podcast today. And if you didn't, you said a lot of the things that he brought up.
I haven't seen it yet, but I will be watching it.
So he specifically mentioned the 7-year mark. But he also had a comment about Bisaccia that I thought was interesting because Bisaccia is an easy target. You know, there's not a whole lot of people that are defending him at this point, whether it's players or social media. And so I thought it was interesting that Mike Wall offered this perspective. And he did say, you know, to sort of not even necessarily a disclaimer, but sort of just the asterisk on the front. Like, hey, I do have relationships with the team, obviously love the team. And I'm privy to information that I'm not going to share here, right? So, and then he goes into what he thinks. The thing he said about Bisaccia was that these problems have existed prior to him. You know, right? Obviously, multiple coordinators prior to him.
Yeah.
And so Wall's comment was it's likely not a Bisaccia problem. And I know there's been some other outlets that have talked about how Bisaccia doesn't get to use the guys that he wants. And there's probably a fair case to be made now that we've seen what Keyshawn Nixon did. I would like to understand that situation. Now, I am seeing whispers from, you know, sources on the Twitter machine that the Packers are expected to move on from Bisaccia regardless of the LaFleur decision. So, again, whispers and sources on Twitter. Not anything official, not reporting any breaking news, but it, you know, it's for what it's worth. That's already happening. That's not a nonsense account that I'm looking at. So that's he's probably gone. But let's give Mike Wall's point some credit here. Let's assume it's not a Bisaccia thing. How the heck do you fix the special teams?
And I think Mike Wall, I didn't, again, I'll go back and listen because I always listen to his podcast. I like it. And what he does with Andy Herman, it's great. But yeah, it's not just a Bisaccia thing. Like, yes, I'm in favor of moving on. I'll be clear. I know you've been clear with that since we've been doing this podcast. Like he needs to be replaced as special teams coordinator. But I don't think.
And let me add to that. It's not just the special teams that I believe Bisaccia needs to be replaced for. It's also the fact that he's the assistant head coach, which means he contributes to the culture and the attitude of this team. So if there is a lack of accountability happening, he owns part of that.
That's a good point. But yeah, like you and I are in agreement. We've been saying this for years. Like they need a better special teams coordinator. Like he should not be in that job anymore. We want to see them move on. Having said that, like you can go and get another special teams coach, and LaFleur's had 3 of them, right? And Bisaccia is number 3. I don't know if it's going to change much. And this goes back to McCarthy. This goes back probably the Sherman days. This is like a 20-year problem, at least with this organization. It's like
I don't ever remember the special teams being a strength, except for the kicker, which, you know, Crosby had a great run, and, you know, that's about it.
And they made Bisaccia one of the highest paid special teams coordinators when they hired him. And he's been a long time special teams coordinator. Now, if you actually look at how his special teams performed, they weren't always great, but he was at least like had a reputation of being a really good special teams coach. You can replace him. It doesn't mean anything's going to change. Maybe they get slightly better, but it doesn't mean like that's going to flip the switch and they're going to be great special teams. This starts with the organization. And this is really like a Goody problem. Like they as an organization don't really care about special teams. No matter how many times it kicks them in the balls in the playoffs or in the regular season, Browns game cost them special teams. They block, like they just don't put enough value in it. And we see that by like, look at the return guys they put out. They didn't have a punt returner or a kick returner all year. That was like an actual return player. Savion Williams is.
You had Keyshawn Nixon, excuse me.
Right.
And I think that kind of points to management of personnel, leadership. That's where I go back to LaFleur. What the heck are you doing? when you get a guy who's an all-pro returner and then he decides he doesn't want to do that anymore, it's like, all right, well, I don't know if you have a job then, dude. Like, that was your job. And if you're Goody, you're like, hey, dude, I gave you an all-pro returner and then you just let him quit. Like, what's up with that?
So that's the question that we haven't gotten answered. Is it they didn't want him to do it because now he's a starting outside cornerback? They didn't want to risk injury. Is it Bisaccia wanted to use him and LaFleur said no? Because there were issues, and this was pointed out early in the year with
you got Dobbs back there returning.
I get that. No. I'm not defending it. I'm just putting out there like what may be going on. Is it Keyshawn that said, and Keyshawn, maybe we'll get to his comments today or another time in his locker room and what he thinks of himself as a player because he's delusional. But maybe he says, I'm a starting cornerback. I don't need to do that anymore. I don't want to do that.
Did you hear his comments today?
Yeah, he thinks he had a really good year and he might want a new contract.
Met all my goals.
I would say you want a new contract, dude. If you want a new contract, go find it with another team because you're gone.
Yeah.
But we can get to that. So, like, what happened with Nixon? Right. They tried all these different punt returners, all these different kick returners. You don't, as an organization, like, you never provided him with a return guy all year. Really, this whole time here. You provide the minimum amount of special teams guys on this roster. Like, they're going to roster Nazir Stackhouse and give them close to a red shirt all year. Like, and they do that continually with bottom of the roster guys. Like, why not add a veteran special teams guy? And they, like, Nick Neiman's on the roster. Okay, that's one. And there's a couple other, Zane Anderson, but, like, not enough. And you can look around the league. A bunch of teams have several special teams guys at the bottom of their roster that are there to be special teams guys, right? And then the kicker issues that they've had over the last few years. I mean, God, McManus in the middle of the years, they allow him to kick with an injured leg, where he was clearly injured and missing kicks, while they had another kicker on the roster. For some reason, they continue to allow him to go out there and kick and miss field goals. Why? And it just becomes like they don't care enough about special teams. Yeah, they're give it like, oh yeah, we need to be better. We need to do this. It's but their actions speak much differently. They don't care about special teams. So yeah, fire Bisaccia. I'm all in favor of that. Go get a veteran, proven special teams coordinator if you can do that, which you better do that. But is it going to change anything? And maybe, but I don't expect this like huge jump from being the worst or one of the worst special teams units to one of the best until, as an organization, they decide like, we've seen enough. We've seen enough problems, especially in the playoffs. Like, you just knew in that game at some point. I remember reading an article a couple of days before the game about special teams and how it always costs. And I'm like, why jinx it? And then they're in the game and here we go with the missed kicks and the punt returns. And it's like, yeah, their two main gunners were injured. Zane Anderson and Bill Melton weren't in that game. But you knew that going in. Coach the guys you have, right? Or like get them in position to be, because the first punt return was your gunner got knocked away. Like, he wasn't even in the play, right? Like, so why is he your gunner? And then eventually I think they did put Bullard out there. And it was like, okay, now you're playing a starter, right? And the block kicks early in the year, on field goals, you had your backup offensive lineman in there. And then after a couple block kicks, okay, we're going to put our starters in there to block on field goal protection. Why did it take blocking kicks to make that decision to say, let's put some starters in there? So, like, yeah, it's Bisaccia.
And it wasn't just one. It was multiple lost games.
Right. And it's year after year after year. And it's like, it's a joke among Packers fans, but it's like, why? Like, why? There's there's teams that struggle on special teams, but not to the point of the Packers every year where you can just count on their special teams being like a dumpster fire. Right. Yeah. So like that has to change. And that starts with the GM, right? That's special teams. So fire the coordinator, bring in somebody else for special teams. Great. But don't expect big changes until they take it more seriously.
Right. Yeah. And, I think there is a lot of change coming. We got a few folks getting involved in the chat now. We got Brazilian Bronco says, please give me hope that Matt is gone. Matt's not gone, man. Matt's getting extended. And I know that like that may be a mystery right now, and there's nobody that'll confirm it. The thing, and maybe we should get into this, the thing about the reporting is they're going to try, right? It's very specific language. And yes. I think what the tweet that I made and the point that I kind of think about here is Goody was awfully optimistic at the beginning of the offseason that they were going to get Aaron Jones re-signed. So much so that we talked about it. It was like, oh, Aaron Jones is back. We got this. Well, Aaron Jones didn't like the offer. And the Packers said, okay, cool. You're going to leave. Well, then the Packers went off and paid twice as much for Josh Jacobs. So there may be an offer on the table. There's no guarantee that LaFleur is going to like it, and I think this is where maybe some of the information comes in to say, look, you haven't been the best, man. Like, you were great in the Rodgers era. Let's look at the Love era and see how that's gone. All right, now we're talking about some disappointment here. You got 3 years of 7 seeds. You got no division titles. You got some impressive blown lead statistics here. All right. We like you, Matt. We want you back, but you're not the top of the league right now, dude. And that's where he might respond with, well, I could get that somewhere else. And who knows where the negotiations go from there. But we really may be looking at that. And that might be why you're not going to hear anything for a while. But I think they're attempting.
It could be. Yeah, the money thing, the contract thing, it could be. I think there's got to be, even if they don't sign the contract, announce a contract extension or anything that this week, like, they have to make the decision this week. So it could be one of those where policy, and he was supposed to meet with him either Sunday night or Monday, but maybe he goes like, what's your plan? Like, are you going to make changes? And if LaFleur comes back and like, I don't really want to change my staff, I really like him, or I'm going to change, the assistant offensive line coach or something stupid like that, then policy can be like, okay, we need to talk about this. Maybe this isn't right. And I think as far as like the reporting goes, anything coming from Schefter right now is coming directly from the agent. He's doing favors for John Harbaugh's agent. Like, it's clear. He's basically like being a mouthpiece for John Harbaugh's agent to drive up John Harbaugh's value around the league, and maybe to, like, I don't know, I think that the Packers are interested in him. Like, so ignore that. Yeah. I think they're going to get the contract done. And I had this discussion online with someone earlier today. Like, I don't think extending him, like, ignore the contract. If it's a 3-year extension, like, John Harbaugh, to bring him up again, signed a 3-year extension like 9 or 10 months ago. He's been fired. Like, that doesn't matter. If they sign him to an extension, LaFleur, and we go through this season similar to what we just went through, with a terrible flame out in the playoffs, or hell, maybe they don't even make the playoffs, I think they fire him. And I don't think they worry about, like, we got to pay him 3 more years. Like, I know they have this reputation for not paying coaches. I don't know if that's completely accurate. But like, I think they would just move on. Like, they got plenty of money to pay him. He'll get another job, and then they won't have to pay him that money that they owe, right? Like, he'll be getting a contract from somebody else. So, like, whatever the extension is, forget about it. But yeah, like, some of the wording is interesting. Like, now they're going to try to get an extension done. And it's like, Matt made it very clear in his press conference he wants to be here. Like, he loves the place. Cool. Like, I appreciate that about him. If they want him, like, I don't know what the holdup would be, but maybe they come in with a lower offer and his agent's like, no, we got John Eric Sullivan now down in Miami. We got Tennessee where he coached before. Like, we can go get a better deal somewhere else. Like, you got to up your offer. And then Ed Policy goes, well, then go ahead. Like, we're not. Right. And if they do that, it's almost like you didn't really want him back to begin with. So if you want him back, come to an agreement, right?
Well, and they haven't said unequivocally they want him back. They've said, we're going to try to get an extension done. Even before the game, that was the language I recall them using. They're going to try to get an extension done.
That's the reports. And I don't expect Ed Policy to come out and like make some kind of like grand announcement or have a press conference. Like, this is going to be one of those, like, we might get to the end of this week and we might see some coaches getting let go, and that'll be like, okay, they're letting go assistant coaches. That means Matt's still going to be here, right? Like, they may never come out and be like, we made an extension, where they may come out and announce it, and it might be like the Friday late afternoon news dump, and
right.
It could be months from now because he's still under contract for next year. So
they don't have to announce it at any point in time.
It could be like, February 10th at the end of the day, and they announce, yeah, we've come to an agreement with LaFleur and Goody, because he's going into the last year of his contract too. and like they're already like on the next year, but like we'll just wait to finalize it and announce it later. And like they're not going to hold a press conference. That's not what they do. That's not what they've done in the past. When he signed extensions, it kind of just gets out there, and I think that's what's going to happen. And then maybe at some point, policy like gets in front of a microphone with the team website or like somewhere, and they go, yeah, what's going, and he goes, yeah, Matt's going to be back. We believe in him. He's our coach, and we're moving forward. And that'll be like it's going to be the minimal. But the decision like to keep him and move forward with him has to be made soon, because there's other teams out there interviewing coaches. Like you can't, they're already behind those teams. So like you got to get, if you're going to move on, you got to get with it and just start making interviews and decide who your next guy's going to be.
Well, there's always stuff going on behind the scenes, and everybody's agent knows everybody else's agent and all this and that. But the way I envision the conversation going is, Matt LaFleur comes in the room, policy says, hey man, love what you've done to this point, really want to extend you. How does $60 million sound? And he says, sounds great. Where do I sign? He goes, cool. So you're okay with giving up play calling then? And that's where it's like, well, how bad do you want to be here? $60 million is a lot of reasons to give up play calling. But I think that gets into the deeper conversation where it's like, look, man, we believe in you as a leader, but you have to grow as a leader. You have to do things differently. Here's the terms of the extension. If you don't like the terms of the extension, all right.
Right. I think if you ask him to give up play calling, you might as well just fire, because that's what he does best. And you can look at, we can complain about they should have done this and they should have done that, but like consistently his offense is a top 10 offense throughout his 7 years here. If you ask him to step away from play calling, just let him go. That's how I feel about it. Like I think he can do that, but I think he can build his staff a little differently to help him more as a coach and more as a manager of the game. And I think he needs to kind of have a little self-evaluation, right? Like he needs to understand like when the situation starts snowballing on you, like this fourth quarter did, like take a deep breath, calm down, and don't start looking at your play sheet and going through all these different play calls. And sometimes you see him on the sideline looking at play sheet. I don't know. I feel like he's overthinking things and he's just like galaxy braining. And it's like, dude, settle it down, focus, and find the right play that can help your team right now. Get back to what your plan is. And I think he can do that. But to take away his play calling, to me, like I don't think he's a CEO coach. I think he's, from what he came up with McVay, with Shanahan, like those guys need to be calling plays. And I think we saw this with McCarthy, like after they blew the NFC Championship game. He said, I'm going to step back. Tom Clemens is going to call plays, because of the disaster that Seattle was. And that
didn't go well. I remember that.
Right. 12 games into the season, he said, nope, I'm calling plays again. And he didn't give it up. And then he goes to Dallas and he was forced to let Kellen Moore. And eventually he took it from Kellen Moore. Like coaches, they got to call plays, right? Andy Reid went through it in Philadelphia. Like certain coaches have to be part of that.
I just think that there's a way. I think there's and maybe what you said, I think is probably what I'm maybe trying to say, just a different way. But there's a way for him to maybe still be involved in that, but have somebody else who's also helping him. Like, Joe Philbin was a pretty damn good OC, right? He went on to be the head coach of the Dolphins after their Super Bowl run. So you can't sit here and look at him as if he wasn't involved. And I think that's what McCarthy had in Joe Philbin, was a guy that he was able to lean on to know, here's what we need to do next while I'm managing the game. And I'm not going to sit here and say McCarthy was a brilliant game manager. He was better than what LaFleur is. But it seems like LaFleur, and I was watching some stuff today, just some replays and breakdowns and some things here and there. And it's like, it just seems like he gets so, like you were saying, kind of caught up and frustrated. And it's like, dude, if you're not comfortable managing the game, you can't call plays for those situations. That's the problem, right? And I see Chris, our buddy, says, exactly, Tim, he sucks at game management, not play calling. Totally hear you. But I think what you got to have, like, he's the head coach. He has to manage the game. And I
Right.
think Bisaccia was supposed to help him with that. Apparently, Bisaccia's not good at that either. You either need somebody who is very good at helping you manage the game, time management, understanding situations, so that you can call the right plays for the situations. And the thing that he had in the first half of his tenure with the Packers was Aaron Rodgers. He was that. Aaron Rodgers was the one managing it from the field. And we heard a little bit about arm wrestling on play calls. Well, that's where it was. Hindsight's very clear to me now. It was when LaFleur was trying to panic and Rodgers was like, dude, let me do this. And we see it now. And we've seen articles where it's like, yeah, sometimes he panics. And I think it's very easy to see just from a fan perspective. Yeah, it looks like he panics on the sideline sometimes. You can't do that, man, as a play caller or a game manager. So you have to be able to, again, this is where I say there's probably some terms involved with this. I think they want him back. I think they believe in LaFleur as a leader and as a guy who can definitely still evolve, right? I don't think that he's stuck as the version that he is. He's a young dude, right? We're talking about guys like Andy Reid and some of these others. Like, he's not that old, man. He hasn't had that much time in the league. So I think that there's still evolutions of LaFleur to come. And sometimes leadership can force that. Ed Policy is somebody who can force that and say, look, man, you're fine. It's gotten you this far. But I'm telling you, if you can give yourself some freedom to be better at this thing, or have someone who's good at this thing do that thing so you can be the best at this thing, that's how it has to be. You can't continue to do both. And I think it was Bob Harlan at the time did the same thing with Mike Sherman. He gave him the GM and head coaching duties. It didn't work. You can't do both. And then they separate them out again. And so, like, I think that's one of the things that you're talking about. LaFleur's got to do some self-analysis, and I think certainly his boss, in policy, and maybe if Goots' boss, we don't know. We've talked about that, right? Yeah. But whoever his boss is going to do the same thing. Like, dude, why do you never ignore your weaknesses, right? Like, they're not going to give him an extension and just ignore the weaknesses. So the things that we're griping about, the fourth quarter collapses, anything else, whatever, the panicking and the play calling, whatever it may be, there's probably some stuff that they can analyze that we don't even have visibility to. They're looking at that. They're going to probably hyper analyze his weaknesses. Like, dude, you did a good job here. Great. Check, like, pat on the back, slap on the butt. We're not spending any time on that. And great executives don't. They're not going to do that. They're going to spend time on his weaknesses. So there's definitely got to be some, I don't want to say like forced, but there's going to be some terms to an extension that says, dude, you have to grow. You have to do things differently than what you've done here to this point, because there are fatal flaws and we can analyze them. We've seen them even when you had Rodgers. They were there. They couldn't close against Tampa Bay. How many interceptions did they get at the end of the game? And they couldn't close. It's like, dude, close a game, finish a game, step on someone's throat. And they'll that's where I think that there's got to be terms associated with that.
Yeah, I think they got to expect change. I think they got to expect change with the coaching staff, how he uses the coaching staff. And he's got to look in the mirror and really do a deep dive on why these losses are happening and what he can do to change that. Like, but I think there's a lot of context too. Like,
Chris the Casual Inn's got a good question here. He says, doesn't it concern you the self evaluation process didn't happen years ago, though? And the one thing I'd like to say to that is Ed Policy just took the job.
Well,
so years ago doesn't really matter because LaFleur's boss changed. So, we can get on to Mark Murphy about that, but he's gone, right? So
I think
that's what I would say to that.
I think they do change things. I think they do try to change things. But, yeah, it's concerning that there are issues that continually pop up with Matt LaFleur. And it's not just him. I think this is an organization thing, again, because this goes back to, McCarthy was losing some playoff games that just rip your heart out, right? Like, it's deeper than that. So, yeah, it concerns me. But I think they do look at it and do an analysis at the end of every season and think that they have it fixed or try to come up with solutions, whether that's switching out coaches, whether that's changing the training staff like they did a couple of years ago. Different things, different points of emphasis, and it hasn't worked. And I get all that. Like, it's absolutely concerning. And again, like I said at the top, like, If you think he should be fired, I understand. I understand what your thinking is.
Me too. I just think it's clear it's not going to happen unless they give him an offer he doesn't want.
Right. I think at this point to argue that is like, okay, I understand a lot of people saying why. And you and I think last week were on board with he should be back. I think the Bears game for me really kind of changed a lot of things for me where if you would have asked me, certainly after that game, I would have said, yeah, if they fire him, I'm okay with it. Sunday,
for sure.
Probably now here we are, 48 hours later, I'm like, okay, let's settle down and really look at this a little bit more and like take the emotion out of it, because I still think he's a really good play caller and play designer of an offense. But obviously, and I think the players buy into him. The players, he hasn't lost that locker room at all. When that's something we see happen with coaches. I mean, I think McCarthy started losing the locker room. He lost the biggest person in that locker room, and that's what led to his downfall. We're not at that point with LaFleur. So, yeah, there's a lot of things I'm really concerned about with him. And I want to see improvement, and I want to see changes on the coaching staff. And, yeah, I'm concerned that next year when we're doing this, that we could be having the same conversation. And I'm going to tell you right now, if we're having this conversation next year, I'm on the firing board. Like, that's it. Like, I'm on board with firing him a year from that. But right now I know I'm hedging a little bit because I can see both sides of it. And I really see people that want to move on. Like, I get it. Like, I can't argue that. And the other thing I'll just point out, and maybe this shouldn't be like a huge reason for it, but look at some of these other coaches that are out there getting interviews. It is a bad pool out there. Like, Jason Garrett got a head coaching interview. Matt Nagy's getting multiple head coach. Cliff Kingsbury is being interviewed for head coaching jobs.
Well, let's be clear. Some of these organizations just suck. So,
that is true. I agree with you, but like it's slim pickings out there. And I know that's not completely a reason to keep a guy. I also hate the
argument. You could find somebody. And again, like everybody's process is going to be different. If the Packers have to replace their head coach, I trust that they won't just bring in a name. You know what I mean? And we didn't really know much about LaFleur until he came in. I didn't. I wasn't expecting that. And same with Hafley. So, like, I think they're out there. And I think these guys are pretty intimately familiar with the deeper coaching networks that fans are not, right? So, I don't know. I don't buy into the argument of there's, who are you going to replace if you fire him? I don't know. I'm a fan, dude. Like, honestly, like it should be an extensive process, right? There should be a lot that goes into that. They should have a lot of interviews, and historically they've done all right? Like you're not looking back going, gosh, they're terrible at hiring head coaches. They've been pretty good. Ray Rhodes is probably the most recent bad example. And
that was
they failed quickly on that one, right? They didn't let that one linger. And so, I think if they put themselves, let me put it this way, if they put themselves in the position to either move on from LaFleur or LaFleur rejects their offer, some way LaFleur and the Packers are not, they go separate ways in 2026. I trust their process of replacing him. I do, because I think that they're, again, familiar with the market. And if you're looking at that going, I don't know if we can replace him, well, you better make him a good offer then. You know what I mean? Like, don't let the man walk. And again, I trust that process. I really do. I for sure was flying off the hook after the game saying, you got to get rid of the guy. It's a fatal leadership flaw is what I saw and what I've seen this season. I mean, when it happened, when Cooper went down, I tweeted it out. I said, the defense isn't going to get another stop. We got to hope that Chicago either trips over their feet the rest of the way or this is it. And sure enough, I was right. Hate being right. That was like just a very, very painful moment to be right. But it felt inevitable, man. And that's not looking at the players going, well, the guys that got you to the 21-6 point just can't get it done. Now I get it. The O-line, there was injuries. You had your fourth string center in there and stuff like that. But that's where my point is, like, you should be able to limp to victory at that point. You have a lead. Maybe you give up some of the lead, but through just game management, you should be able to kill the clock enough, manage enough first downs to get out of there, and they couldn't do it. And if this was a one-off, if this was the only time this happened this season, all right, you know what? Just what a damn shame, right? Terrible timing, bad day, whatever it is. The fact that this happened 5 times this season, what was it? They've had a 2-possession lead blown in the fourth quarter 5 times this season, twice against the Bears, and what was it? 3 times this season, they blew a lead with a 10-plus lead with 5 minutes left in the game. 3 times, and that's only happened once in organization history. Something that's so bad it's only happened once in history happened 3 times this season. That is a fatal flaw in leadership. That's not just you had some injuries. You've had injuries. You've had terrible Packers teams that haven't done that. I've heard some terrible stories about the 70s and 80s. Like, you've had really bad teams. Even, there's been teams here and there where the Packers have had bad stints. They weren't that bad. They didn't collapse out. Like, and like the seasons prior, like in 2014, right? I'm sorry to bring it up, guys. I know this is going to trigger some of you. That was the only time that happened that season. It's not like you had 5 other awful fourth quarter collapses. That was that. It was terrible, but it was that. That was it. You weren't talking about that team not being able to finish that season. Same thing like with the 4th and 26. That wasn't a team that couldn't finish. I mean, you were just afraid of what Brett Favre was going to do. I remember every time he heaved, it's like, all right, touchdown or interception. I don't know, flip a coin. And then you're like praying the defense could get a stop. But it wasn't like they're just choke artists. This team, they're choke artists. They did it 5 times this season, man. Like, that's where you have to get in there and go, yo, what happened? Right. And Chris, you had the question. You're saying, why didn't MLF have address these issues about himself years ago? Because years ago he had one of the best win percentages in NFL history, coming off 3 13-win seasons with Aaron Rodgers. Years ago, he didn't need to do any reflection. He was the man, right? He turned this team around. He had Aaron Rodgers turned around. We were knocking on the door of the NFC Championship game. He didn't have to do this reflection. It was just, well, Bakhtiari got hurt, bad luck here and there. Now we've got some data. You fast forward a few years, you've got some data, and this year specifically, right? Prior to this year, we were talking a little bit about it. These guys are kind of soft. It's like, what's going on? Why can't we seem to finish? This year, it's just like it's overwhelming. The problem is glaring. The hole is massive. You have to fix it, and that's where I just think that there's no way the extension doesn't come with some terms. But I will say this. All that said, I was just flying off the hook, ready to fire LaFleur. The player endorsements moved me a tick back the other way. I'm back just the slightest nudge across okay, keep LaFleur. If you're going to tell me that Micah Parsons is going to go out there and publicly defend him the way that he did, Jordan Love, like you're talking about when they fired or moved on from McCarthy, he lost the most important voice in the locker room. It's true. LaFleur's got the most important voices in the locker room right now. Sure. And even I would say the most damning criticism was Quay Walker saying that, we just can't finish and this has been a problem. But that wasn't necessarily just pointed at LaFleur. He was kind of just saying this is a whole organization thing. This is all of it. And he'd used us. He didn't use them. He wasn't saying he was taking ownership in it. But that's where I'd say, like, I'm just a hair back on the other side of, okay, keep LaFleur. But, yeah, I was pretty strongly on the other side of getting rid of him before. So I totally get it, man. It's frustrating.
So let me just –
Sorry, I kind of unloaded.
No, you're good. You're good. I just want to – no. That's fine. So I think going back to, like, why hasn't he fixed these issues in the past? Yeah, part of that was maybe they were riding high and, like, good regular seasons. We just got to get over that hump sort of thing. And then I think part of it was, all right, we got to fix the defense. He realized too late, but he realized Joe Barry's not the answer. So, like, then they thought they fixed the defense and, like, okay, we fixed that. That'll solve things. But now it's still not solving things. It runs deeper. And, yeah, things should have been fixed. Things should have been solved. But, it's not just Matt LaFleur. We talked about special teams. Like, that's organization-wide. Like, there's things that it goes deeper and it involves more than just Matt LaFleur. But yeah, it's a concern. The injury thing, it obviously played a huge factor. But they should still find a way to win when it's 21-6, when it's 21-3 at halftime, right? Like, I started having bad feelings at halftime when I'm like, all right, 21-3, they get the ball first in the second half. Man, if they can just drive down and get a touchdown, it's not over, but they got it. Like, the Bears ain't coming back. And then I immediately think, there's no way they're taking the ball and going right down the field and getting a touchdown. They're going 3 now in the first drive. Like, this is what they do. And sure enough, they did. And that to me was when the game started changing. Like, punt, punt, punt. The first 3 drives, like, kept the Bears in it, kept giving them life, and eventually the dam burst and it all fell apart from there. And the injury thing, like, yeah, they're obviously decimated with injuries, and it's to really key players, some of their best, most important players. And you lose Cooper, who was having a strong game. But we just saw the San Francisco 49ers go on the road and win a playoff game. Their defense has been playing most of the year without Bosa and Warner, 2 of their best players. They're not a very good defense, but they're finding ways to win. George Kittle blows out his Achilles in that game. Their quarterback missed a bunch of games. Trent Williams missed time. But they won, did they win 11 or 12 games this season? They go on the road and win a playoff game. They came from behind to win it. We can tell the Eagles have a very good defense. Their offense is a disaster with a lot of talent and a lot of money spent. They're bad, but that's another subject. But the 49ers went on the road and found a way to win.
Mm-hmm.
And had a better regular season record than the Packers with, I don't know, just as many injuries, just as many key injuries as the Packers, but they found a way to do it. And now they're playing next week in Seattle, and the Packers aren't. Like, the Packers that should have been them. Find a way to win the game. Yes, I know Cooper got hurt, and there was no Zach Tom, and Micah went down, and Devontae Wyatt, and we can go down the list. Like, I get it. But you're in that position, 21-3 at halftime, 21-6 going in the fourth quarter. You've got to find a way to win that game. And yeah, you're not going to win the Super Bowl without all those guys, but you're in that position, 21-6.
Win that game.
Win that game.
I'm not telling you you're going to win the Super Bowl. Win that game.
You put yourself in that position with all those injuries to be up. Close it out and find a way. And you see the example of the 49ers being able to do that. Like, 2 different teams, right? And like, I don't look as like, I don't want to get into comparison of the 49ers and the Packers too much.
The Rams did it too. They were on the ropes with the Panthers.
Yeah, they don't have the injuries
to come back.
Well, yeah, sure. But I'm just saying that the injuries both teams were dealing with, like, just find a way to finish it out and close it out, and they couldn't do that. But and then your other point, I'm sorry, just real quick, was the players. He hasn't lost the locker room. Michael Parsons supported them. Jordan Love said after the game. And then all the guys at locker room clean out today. Jacobs and Watson and Javon Bullard and like everybody. And Mike, I think he had the strongest words. Coming from him, it's the strongest. Like, they all believe in him. And this wasn't like, well, we'll see, it's a business. We'll see what the organization decides. Like, they all want him back. Now, like, should that sway it completely? No. I don't think so, but you got to factor that in at least a little bit. Like, these guys still believe in him and very strongly believe in him, to the point where, like, Micah basically said, like, I don't even know why this is being talked about. Like, this guy's a really good coach. He's part of the reason why I want to come here. Like, it's got to convince you a little bit. Like, if these guys still have that belief, right? Like, the stuff coming out of Baltimore since Harbaugh was let go is like, there were some guys in that team that weren't believing him, including the quarterback, it seems like.
Yeah, it seemed like
you're not getting that from Green Bay. Right, you're not getting that in Green Bay. So, like, it shouldn't be the overriding deciding factor, but it's just one of the points, like, okay, even with this choke job, like, they still believe him. They still want him there. So, yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, and that's why I say, for me, it moves me back to the other side. And it'd be one thing if it was Josh Jacobs. Right, Josh Jacobs he's willing to come to the mic to say the right things, kind of be the statesman for the offense or for the team. I would expect him to be like, yeah, that's my guy. We want him back. When you got all of these important voices, and one thing I say is pay attention to things that players say that they don't have to. To your point, it's real easy to be like, look, it's a business. We'll see what happens. And that's a fair answer, right? It's like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And some players will say that kind of stuff just to protect their own emotions. Like, I'm not going to get my hopes up, whether he's back or not. I'm going to go with whatever they say, right? So bring in somebody else, let's roll. And that's fine, right? That's sort of the cop-out answer. When these guys go out there and Micah's telling you that he reached out to LaFleur saying, you're my guy, like, and then you just hear it from all the most important voices, that's where you pull me back to the other side. And you go, all right. Because what you don't want to do is reset what all of those players have been doing. Because if there's one thing that we can all agree on, the players, especially the ones we heard from, Love, Kraft, Parsons, some of these others, are playing great. Love is playing great.
Yeah.
300 yards and 4 touchdowns, dude. Are you kidding me? That's all. Like, you can't ask for more than that. It's phenomenal.
Jane Reed catches a ball, that game might end differently.
The whole conversation is different if he catches that, man. And I don't. It's funny that, and I caught myself thinking this today. It's like, dude, I haven't even paid attention to that. I completely forgot that he dropped that. I'm so pissed about the rest of the situation that I forgot about that. And usually that would be the thing you would fixate on.
Right. And Love's performance is going to go and be forgotten because of everything else. And he played a really good game.
And Parsons is a first-team All-Pro. If you have him for that game, it's different. You have him for the other game against the Bears, it's different. You have him, you get him the whole season, it's different. And it's totally fair for LaFleur's case to say that. It's true. We could see it. Now, were there disappointing losses despite having those guys? Yes, there were. But they were trending in the right direction, even there in that game. With the first half, the way they played, without the guys that they had, you still were in that position. And that's why it's like I'm willing to say, all right, bring back LaFleur. Fine. But you have to have terms. You have to have things change. One of the things that has to change, and Chris made the comment here, he says, players love LaFleur because he lets them walk all over him. Look at Nixon. And that's what we've said. It's like, dude, you got to be a general, right? And I think that the structure of the organization and who reports to who, I'm not going to get into pretending that I'll know how that'll fall in line. But I do think that there has to be some accountability to the GM for the coach, because the GM is giving you resources to use. He's giving you resources. If you use them incorrectly, you should have to be held accountable for that. You should be responsible for that. And Nixon's an easy case because it's like, I gave you an all-pro returner. You're sitting here, you're telling me you don't have a returner. I gave you an all-pro returner and you let him quit. Why'd you do that?
But we don't know that.
Well, but that's kind of how I sort of run that conversation in my head, just to sort of illustrate the point, which is like, I'm giving you pieces, man. Why aren't you using them the right way? Because that can happen. That could totally happen. Everybody's, and I'm actually on the other side of what I'm about to say, but everybody's all like, wow, we didn't use Golden. We drafted a first-round receiver. We don't even use him. I get it. I get not using him. Dude has a bright future. He's going to be phenomenal. We saw a little glimpse of that today. No telling why they didn't use him, but it's certainly possible he just needed to mature, needed to learn things. There's stuff we're just not ever going to know. I'm willing to even concede that, even though I thought he should have been out there. Like, he's going to have a great future. But you can look at that and go, shoot, man, you spent the first-round pick on that guy. Why aren't you using him? In my opinion, the GM's got a case. Like, hey, dude, I gave you this piece. Like, what are you doing? I think you have to have some accountability there. And I don't know that it has to be entirely that the head coach reports to the GM, but there needs to be something tied to it. Because a lot of people want to crap on the GM. A lot of people want to go, oh, good. Didn't do this, didn't do that, didn't get cornerbacks, didn't get D-line, didn't get O-line or enough O-line. you put some resources in the O-line. But the point is there's, again, we won't know this, but it seems certain on some level that resources get used in a way that the GM didn't intend or anticipate or, whatever it may be. And again, I think there has to be something done about that. You can't just have an all-pro returner saying, I quit, I'm going to be CB1, and again, like we know, it's just an illustration. There's nuance and depth to the situation. It's more than that, but it's essentially that's what you cannot have. You can't have him giving you an all-pro player and then that player vacating the position. Now you don't have the all-pro anymore. It's like, well, that was the resource that I got. So I think that there's definitely criticism. Goot's not perfect, makes mistakes. You know, there's a lot of examples that have been tossed out. You probably all know him better than I do, even. But I think you have to have a better relationship, I think, is what I'm detecting. It seems like there's a little fracture in that relationship. I don't know how they structure it, but that would be one of the things that I would look for in an extension for LaFleur. And when we're talking about what changes and bringing in other coaches, I think there's other things like that can also change the situation.
So changing it a little bit, and I think we both are in agreement that we think LaFleur's coming back. You're a little more on the side, like, okay, you're leaning more, he should be back. I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm still on the fence. I guess I'm leaning a little more bring him back, but the fact that I'm on the fence kind of makes me feel like if I'm on the fence about it, then they should move on in a way, right? And I think either way, like I can see both sides of it. But if we both are feeling it, like they're going to bring him back and all signs seem like they're going to bring him back, then what coaches do you think, not necessarily that you feel, because we know who you feel they should move on from us as a coach, but what coaches do you think they will actually move on from? Because it seems pretty clear that if Matt's back, he's going to make some changes to the staff. So who do you think it's going to be?
Well, the obvious one I do think is the offensive coordinator. And not that I think that he has to be a scapegoat, but it is just sort of a thing. It's like, we've got data on this situation. Something has to change. That seems like an obvious place that could change. With that, I think there's several members of the staff, offensive line coach, probably some of the receivers coaches. Those are situations where it's not even, again, it's not to say, well, y'all are the ones to blame. It's just, it really sometimes is. It's like, look, we just need different. You guys might go on, Steno might get a head coaching gig. He might get a great offensive coordinator gig somewhere else and do much better. I've made the example before. I was super critical of Kellen Moore because I didn't think that he was very good in Dallas. I thought he was sort of set up to fail to begin with, because how do you coach a quarterback that you were competing for a job with and you lost? That to me that's hard. Then he goes on and does very well for himself, right? He wins the Super Bowl with the Eagles. Now he's head coach with the Saints. Like, great job, dude. He's a great coach. Sometimes that's what happens. You have to go somewhere else to grow. So I'm not even sitting here saying, Steno's a bum, gotta go. I'm saying that the situation has to change. And I think where you're at now, it makes sense. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this. One of the reasons that we sort of uncovered in reading articles and our conversations about this before is, Steno was great coming in to be an extension of LaFleur, to help bring Jordan along as the starter, and run the offense in the way LaFleur wants, and sort of just, again, kind of like an extension of LaFleur when you need that, right? You need LaFleur's brain to be duplicated for your quarterback to get him adjusted and get him going. Your quarterback is there. He doesn't need to be brought along anymore. He doesn't need to be coddled. He needs to be set loose. And I think that is a totally different set of needs that you requires whatever, like a different job description, if you will, for your offensive coordinator. And so I would say to Steno, well done up to this point, because Jordan Love is phenomenal. So whatever hand you had in that, whether it was a little one or a big one, well done, sir. Because we have a top 5. If one of the trolls wants to say top 10, I think he's a top 5 quarterback. I think his needle is pointed straight up. His trending straight up. Like, he's your guy. You guys did it. You did it. You got a franchise quarterback for the 3rd time in a row. No organization is that good. So that's what I want to premise this with, is this is not necessarily you're a bum, we can't win with you. It's an evolution. You need an evolution now. You need to sort of shed the skin and grow more. So I would say, yeah, you need to turn over the offensive staff, and you need to bring in somebody, I think, that contributes more to the strategy of things and forces LaFleur to think more about things. Because, again, I think it was more of a one-way voice. It was like, all right, LaFleur, what are we doing? This is what we're doing. All right, guys, you hear that? This is what we're doing. And I think what you need is like, and I don't know if it's a McDaniels, but it's probably somebody in LaFleur's sphere, right? That's similar minded offensively that can come in the room and be like, look, dude, I know how you run things, but check this out. Like, and can be sort of an iron sharpens iron type offensive coordinator that also has the expertise to carry Jordan Love forward and the experience in the playoffs, whether it's play calling or not. I think you need more of that experienced person now to carry that forward.
Okay, I can see that. Like I still have a hard time thinking he'll move on from Stenovich, but maybe Stenovich gets a play calling OC job somewhere else. He was interviewing for a few spots last year. Maybe he gets that, and that's the way to change it. I want somebody, if that happens, or whatever, he's not the offensive coordinator for whatever way about it. He's out. I want somebody from outside. Like I don't want an internal promote Jason Vrabel or Getsy or Hackett or
Mannion. I know there was some talk about him. I don't want an internal promotion.
No, get somebody, like, even if it's somebody LaFleur's worked with before, I'm okay with that. But I want an outside perspective. I still want LaFleur calling plays, but I want an outside perspective, somebody with some different ideas, fresh ideas, or maybe can help him through the course of the game with the management of it, with whatever the decision making as far as how you're going to attack a defense as things are changing throughout a game, whatever the holdups are.
Yes.
Right. I think offensive line, I think they're going to make a change there because not much came out of LaFleur's press conference on Sunday, but he repeatedly brought up the offensive line as a big reason why that game got away from him in the second half. And he's right on. The offensive line played a bad second half. Rasheed Walker was awful in that game. Some of that's on maybe the play call or not lack of adjustments, but looking back, different people were posting online today, like there were plays to be made there, but Jordan Love didn't have the time to get to them. There were guys open down the field. Like LaFleur was not conservative in the second half of the league. He was being aggressive. He was trying to get shots down the field, but they couldn't hold up in protection because guys were blowing their assignments or just flat out getting beat. And he kept bringing up the offensive line before his press conference Sunday. And it just seems to me like, the players got to execute and play better, but I think he's going to change with Butkus. Like I don't think Butkus will be back next year. And I think that's the right move. I think they were developing offensive linemen better when Stenovich was the offensive line coach, and I don't think they're developing as well with Butkus. I want somebody from the outside. I don't want an internal promotion there. Go get a veteran offensive line coach who can help develop these guys, and somebody who's done it before, Bill Callahan or whoever. Here you go. This is your room. Do what you want with them, but develop, get Jordan Morgan comfortable at left tackle, get Anthony Belton at right guard. Try to help, Banks find his game, and whoever the new center is going to be, turn it over to a veteran. Do that. So I think they're going to make a change at offensive line. I think they need to look at the receivers coach, who, Vrabel's in that room, but there's a receivers coach, Mahaffey, who previous to being the receivers coach, he was the assistant offensive line coach. I don't know how you go from assistant offensive line to receivers coach.
That's the kind of stuff that drives me nuts. I don't like that. I don't want that. You can learn that, and you can do fine maybe learning that, and eventually in your career you're going to be good. This team now needs winners. We can't have guys learning positions. And that's what Stenovich was as the offensive coordinator. He was learning how to be an offensive coordinator because he'd never done it before at any level. And that's, again, I'm not here to call him a bum. Where they have gotten this offense to, it was a great offense this season. There was definitely complaints. They were not perfect, but they were a great offense. And especially in the second half of the season, toward the end, even in that game, they were moving the ball well. But that's where, to me, I look at Stenovich, you're still here, man. How is the offensive line? How does it change that much just by you moving to offensive coordinator? You should still be involved. If you were developing the offensive line well before, it shouldn't change now. You're still in the room. Maybe you're not hands-on in the drills and as much, but you're still there, man. Whatever you were doing before should still exist. It shouldn't exit the room. And that's that's where I'm kind of that's where I start to get suspicious. That sniffs like bad leadership. It doesn't smell like good leadership. And that's what we've all been sort of complaining. That's why everybody's got their crosshairs on LaFleur, because these problems are a result of poor leadership, is lack of accountability, which we've seen in all of these mistakes that keep happening. They keep having, and we can talk about the refs. That's just not even worth the conversation, not even worth the breath. The refs sucked. They're always going to suck. But you can't put yourself at the mercy of the refs. And that's what they did in some of these cases. Yes, if the calls went the way they were supposed to, the game could have changed. Doesn't matter. Don't put yourself in that position. The point being is, like, not everybody is just repeating these mistakes over and over and over and over again. You have mistakes at the beginning of the season. They either get cleaned up or they don't. You stink or you don't. When you see guys play well, but just consistently make the same just mental mistakes, that's bad leadership. They're not emphasizing these things enough. And some of it, I think, is this whole like desire to be a player's coach. I'm not going to dog on that, because I do believe that there's a lot of benefit to that, but it has to be a good mix of player's coach. I got you. I'm here with you, but I'm also I'm going to kick you in the dick every now and then. Like, if you need it, like you need me to tell you suck, like go hit the jugs machine or whatever it is that, you know, to catch as many balls as you can. Whatever, like, you got to be able to tell these guys how it is. And I think that there's a lack of that right now. I think they go through these things and they're like, oh man, that sucks. We can't have that. All right, get them next time, champ. It's like, no, dude, that doesn't work. Like, there has to be a real cultural emphasis. Like, no, dude, we don't do that. We do not hold here. There's been offensive linemen with the Packers that have had, what was it, Tauscher? How long did he go without ever getting a holding call? Did he go his whole career? Or he had like one holding call or something? Like that kind of stuff, dude. Like, it should be a matter of pride. Like, bro, we don't get holding calls here. It doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. Or like the thing about protecting your quarterback. There were way too many things here in the last quarter of the season that we could point to where Jordan Love was not stood up for. The one, I think it was the Broncos, where they got up and it was the Broncos linebacker got up and smashed his head in the ground. Bro, I want a 15-yard penalty right there. I want a flag. Not on the Bronco. I want a flag on the Packers. That dude should be on his back. Not that you hurt him, but boy, you should give him a good pop after that. Get a flag. Somebody go hunt that flag down. That's what I'm telling you. And that sets the tone. And that's a tone that like permeates in those moments where you need that crunch time. Like, all right, guys, buckle down. We got it. There's no option to fail here. And like, so let me try to wrap up all this point with a little bow. The best teams are not the ones that make the most plays. They are the ones that make the least amount of mistakes. Go look at the Patriots teams. What was their motto? Do your job well, which means don't screw up, right? He didn't say, go make more plays than the next guy. Do your job well. Do your job well. And I don't feel like that's the culture right now, but I do feel like it can be. Even under LaFleur, I just think that the right expectation has to be set. And we don't know what Ed Policy's expectation is. We don't know how he approaches this. We're in new territory with him, right? But that's where I'm coming from on all this, where it roots back into leadership. Is it's like there's just too much tolerance for mistakes, and we've seen that you can't really debate that.
I agree. Yeah, I can't debate it. And I think they need closers. Like,
right.
Halfley called Micah Parsons a closer because all the fourth quarter sacks, and he would close. Micah Parsons one-on-one, like you're not going to find another Micah Parsons. But like, you can have guys that when you have that lead and you have a chance to put your foot on somebody's throat, you do it and you make the plays. You don't screw up and make the mental mistakes or the physical mistakes to do that. They need more closers. And if you want to call that like a killer instinct, fine. Call it whatever you want. But like, they need more of an attitude. Like, this game is ours. We are going to put it away now. They're not even getting back in the picture or having hope. We're going for the kill. And that's not just taking it, trying to take a deep shot down the field on offense. That's just going out there and knowing the game is in your hands and you have the chance to put the other team away. And like, not waiting around to, have something fall in your lap or you go out there and you take it. and you just find a way to stab them through the heart, right? Just put them away, make the plays that have to be made, and know that you're about to kill this team and go and do it. And they don't have that kind of instinct. They don't have that ability right now.
It just feels like they're on their heels in those moments, and they're just completely
and then
not able to react.
And then things start to go against them, and all of a sudden it starts to spiral from there. And they start to get tight and play tight, and the mistakes happen. And you need to know that, all right, we need to take this game right now. It's ours. We're not giving them any hope. We're going to go close them out. And
if they bring in the right assistants, you go get the right OC, you get the right offensive line coach, you get the right receiver coach, they can set that tone. We've got a very famous example of that in Kevin Green in the Super Bowl telling Clay Matthews, it is time. That wasn't McCarthy. That wasn't Capers. It was Kevin Green, right? You need that all throughout your assistants. So, and that's where I think, like, if your assistants are just sort of looking at their, it's like if all the offensive coaches are looking at LaFleur like, all right, dude, what do we do? I don't like that. I don't want that. I want my offensive line coach in there like, all right, guys, like, this is it. This is our philosophy. This is our strategy. This is our plan. This is what we're going to do. I want the offensive line coach to be able to do that. I want him to be able to grab his guy, his fourth string center, and go, look, dude, I know you're new. You haven't had reps. You better find it, right? Like, I don't want this, hey, buddy, good luck. You do your best, all right? And who knows what they actually said to the kid before he goes in. But we can get it. We feel it. You feel the culture, and the culture is not a killer culture. It's a complacent, give it your best attaboy culture, and that's what gets you these 9 and 8 seasons with a first round exit. That's what that gets you. I believe that you can get those guys, and I'll be concise. I think, to be specific, I think what you need an offensive coordinator is someone who's been a head coach before. When you have someone who's been a head coach before, they understand what LaFleur's job is, and they understand best how to help him with that job and complement that job. From there, they also understand what they need from their assistants. And that's what I would look for. I hope they find a former head coach. Yes, McDaniels is an easy one to point to, but not necessarily him. He's interviewing for the Lions job, I saw. But
for some coaching jobs.
Find a former head coach, somebody that's like, look, good offensive coordinator, tried as head coach, didn't go as well. I'm not talking about anybody who's in the building currently because they did not do well, but find somebody who gets it that can contribute to that. And I think that's your best hope to reset that culture, and that's what you have to do. And then from there with the defense, it sounds like Parsons is pretty convinced that Hafley's not going anywhere. I sure hope he's right. That'd be phenomenal. But Hafley deserves some blame here, man. The second half against the Bears, he just gave Colson Loveland that hole in the zone. They ran the same play 3 times in a row to Loveland. It was literally the same play. It's just like, no. How are you letting a team like that run the same play on you 3 times in a row, man? That is an indictment. Adjust. Holy hell. See the hole in the zone and adjust. Put someone there. They keep sending that guy there. Put someone on him. It was crazy. Colson Loveland's not that good. That's what
he's playing great.
It helps whenever a team will just give you a hole in the zone and not cover.
He's had a good year, but
he's had a good year. But he should not have had a game like that. Like, Hafley has to go back to that film and go, shoot, man, what were we doing? Do something. Put someone on him. They didn't have anybody on him. They just kept putting a zone over him. He kept finding the same hole. So, no kidding, man. You keep doing the same thing. It's kind of easy to go back to it.
It was
so. Hafley's got some soul searching to do.
Oh, for sure. I think since Parsons went down, his performance hasn't been very good as a defensive coordinator. Like, he's interviewing all these places. Like, if they watched the last 5 games, it wasn't very good for Jeff Hafley. I mean, the Ravens ran all through him, and he had no answer.
That was ugly. That's not good.
Bo Nix lit him up, and the 2 big comebacks against Chicago where he had no answer how to stop him. So he deserves blame. And I mean, you mentioned Parsons thinks he's coming back. Well, Matt LaFleur is convinced he's not coming back, that he's going to get one of these jobs, and he's got a bunch of interviews coming up this week. We'll see what happens. So that's going to be obviously a huge hire. Like LaFleur's 1 for 2 at defensive coordinator, right? Got one really wrong and he got one right. So what he does there is big. And I just think going back to the offensive side of the ball, we're in agreement they need change. And I think they need to bring in outside voices. Like promote from within is great. If you can continue to promote your guys and they grow and they do a good job and then, they go on to other jobs, like that's great to promote from within. Cool. But their offensive staff doesn't have a whole lot of experience outside of Green Bay, right? Like as position coaches, like there's not a whole lot. I know they've brought Getsy back and he's been other places, but he's been other places and was fired there and didn't do a good job.
He didn't do very well.
Right, but Stanovich was an assistant offensive line coach before he got the O-line job in Green Bay, and like they've worked their way up, and credit to them and all that. But like, you need some outside perspective. You need some veterans who have been there in that position and developed their guys. And when somebody's going down because this team's been hit with injuries, like the next guy can go in there, and it's a drop off talent wise, but he's going to go in there and know what he needs to do to execute the play to get the job done. And maybe he's not going to do it as well as the guy he's replacing, but he's not going to screw it up and really like cost your team. He's going to know his assignment. And too many times you see that and it's not getting done. So, yeah, I think we're in agreement on the coaches. And just the other thing I'll bring up, because I know pretty far in here, just for the team itself, these weren't like rookies making mistakes as far as players with execution. Like these are veteran guys that were making mistakes. And that's the other thing they got to look at. Like, it's one thing if there's a rookie or an inexperienced player going out there, but Rasheed Walker's been here for a long time. He had an awful game. He's making mistakes, and Keyshawn Nixon's making mistakes, and
that's what I'm talking about. Like, it has to be a culture of in this moment, I'm going to be the absolute best version of me, and there's no doubt about it. And instead, yeah, you have injuries to and you're down to your fourth center and whatever, Zach Tom's not in there, but the guy who's been there all season, one of the guys who's not injured is the problem. It's like, well, damn it, man, that's not good. We could talk about injuries, but when one of the guys who's not injured is the problem, well, I'm not even looking at the fourth string center right now.
No, and your backup right tackle was Jordan Morgan. He played a good game for him, but the left tackle was the one that let you down. So the one you're worried about at right side with not having Zach Tom, he was fine. It's the guy who's been your left tackle who had a bad game and really didn't have a good year.
But that's where I look at, again, leadership. It's like, look, how good that guy is as a player, and maybe you're not going to get the best ever version of him, but you should have seen the best version of him this season in that moment of the game. Like, just that should be it, man. Like buckle up, dude. What else did you play the game for? Like, come on. It's your rival. You're in the playoffs. Like that. How are you not bringing your best in that moment? How are you the problem in that moment? It's such an important position as left tackle. Those are the things that are a cultural problem, in my opinion, because these guys feel the expectations. They feel from the top down, we can take our foot off the gas. We're all right. We'll get out of here. Like they feel that. What you should feel is like, you should feel like Cignetti's teams, man. Like, dude's up by 35 points and he's pissed off at his team for not doing better still. It's like, good Lord. I want that energy. I want Cignetti energy on this team. That's what I really want. And that's my comment to some of my Bears fan friends. Like, if Cignetti was coaching this team, y'all would have lost by 50. And
he still wouldn't have been happy.
And he would have been pissed. He would have been in the post-game press conference with a mug on his face going, we could have done better than that. And we got to get to the film because there's a lot we got to correct. And it's not this, we got to get to the film to figure out what happened. No, dude, he was there. He's watching the game. It's that attitude, man. It's that you can feel it. You can't put your finger on it, but you can feel it. You can taste it almost. And it's repulsive because like good leadership is something I think humans naturally crave. And it's been bad leadership this season. But again, I've said we've seen great leadership from LaFleur in the past, and I will continue to say, I'll wrap it back to this, the way that those players stood up for him, if you're not a good leader, they don't do that. Now, you may have had some leadership failures, but if you're not a good leader, those players aren't speaking about you that way. I'll just say that. They may say what they said about, our buddy Joe Barry. Oh, he's a nice guy. Love him. And they did say some of that, but there was real coach endorsements in there too. And so that's where it's like, all right, I'll hear you out. I'll listen. You guys are the pros. Some of you are the best in the league at what you do. You got my attention, and I default to your judgment. So I'll take that. But you gotta have a real change in culture, and the only way to do that is to turn over a lot of other positions. Maybe you turn over the defensive coordinator because he does get one of those jobs. It does sound like he wants to coach Parsons, and it sounds like Parsons is confident he's going to be coaching him next season. We'll see what happens. But who you bring in, whether it's turn over your offensive staff and or your defensive staff, can change the culture. But if you bring in the wrong people, man, we're in for the same thing. And we really need those Kevin Green types. We need the guys who are in there. They understand what a player needs to hear in the moment that they need to hear it and deliver. Not look to the next guy and go, what do we do, coach? Not saying that everybody does that. It's just sort of like that's the opposite end of that. And it feels like that's what we're getting. It's sort of this pass off of, I don't know, maybe maybe you can do it. That's not me. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like there's leadership there. And I will say all this. One thing I've noticed is there's people coming to the defense of Halfley. There's people coming to the defense of LaFleur. I didn't hear any defense of Steno. I don't hear anybody saying that guy's my coach. I heard it about LaFleur. I heard it about Halfley. He's the best coach I've ever had. I'm still not getting that about Steno.
They're not asked about Steno. That's why they don't talk about it. They're asked specifically about LaFleur and Halfley. So that's why it's there.
Okay.
So I'll wrap it up. The last thing I'll say on all this coaching stuff and where they're at is, if we're right and all the reporting's right that LaFleur is going to be back and he gets his extension, to go back to the title of our episode, I still think he's on a hot seat next year. Even if he gets an extension, he's on the hot seat. And
you have to prove that you've evolved, that you're moving on, that you've learned from your mistakes and corrected them. You have to, because they're fatal. They're terrible. If you repeat anything close to this season next season, you gotta go. You gotta
move on. So, yeah, it sucks. And I know for those people that want him fired now, you're going to be mad. And none of us, whether you're pro Matt LaFleur or anti Matt LaFleur coming back, nobody wants to go through this ending again. Nobody wants to see the team only win 9 games. Like, we don't want that. But if they do something like this or something very similar to this next year, you're going to get your wish and hope he let go. I'm really confident in that. But let's hope it doesn't come to that, and let's hope we're still, this time next year, they're getting ready for a divisional playoff game.
Well, and the thing is, and this is, something I was kind of thinking through earlier. If they give him the extension, you're right. I think he's still in the hot seat, because if he's not, policy is totally hooking his wagon to the LaFleur train. And I just don't understand. I just don't think he would do that. Like, if you go off, you give him the extension and you commit to him, even though he continues to do, we got fourth quarter collapses and you're 9-8 and maybe making the playoffs, maybe your first round exit for the next 3 years, and you just tolerate that, the board of directors will get rid of policy. He'll be done. He won't hang around, because you can't tolerate that. At that point, that would be 6 straight years of that kind of behavior. No, man. That's not what Green Bay is. And that's why they have the structure that they do. Because if you get caught in that situation, like the Dallas Cowboys, for example, where your owner is your GM and he knows that he would fire himself, but he won't do it. He said that before. He said, if it was anybody else, a GM like this, I'd fire him, but I'm not going to fire myself. That kind of situation is catastrophic, because that guy ain't going anywhere. And then when he does, he's got a long line of family behind him. But with the Packers, they're not going to tolerate that. It is still a public organization. And it's not that all of us that have the plaque on our wall that we paid $200 for have a vote in that. But there is a board of directors. There is. And if policy doesn't perform, he's out. He will not hang out. They won't keep him. So there is hope in that. But boy, I don't want to have to go through 3-4 years of Packers misery to get to that point. Obviously, we want Packers success. If they extend LaFleur, I hope he wins a Super Bowl next 3-4 years. But that's what we're looking at here. And I don't see policy doing that. I don't see him entirely hook in his career with the Packers to one head coach. I think that would be foolish. And he doesn't seem like a foolish guy. Seems like an intelligent guy. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason. I guess I'll give like a little concise, what am I hoping for this offseason? I'm hoping for a cultural reset, a cultural evolution, maybe. Things have to change. And I think that it will happen. The players taste it. They know things have to change. If I was the head coach, I would have that video of Caleb Williams shredding cheese in the post game. I would have that playing on repeat throughout the facilities all off season. You don't want to see that? Well, finish a damn game. But that's the kind of stuff I would do. Anyway, cultural reset. Finishing has to be like the main mindset they have. You got to restock the cabinet at cornerback. You got to add to the defensive line. You cannot be one Devontae Wyatt away from your defense falling apart. You can't be one Cooper away from your defense falling apart. You got to have, and obviously Parsons, Parsons, you can't replace him. You can't go find another Parsons. But I do think that you can find guys as far as, D-line goes that can complement Wyatt and have a little bit better depth than you had this year. And you got to have another linebacker. Again, like you had Quay Walker there, but as soon as Cooper went down, their ability to get a stop went out the window, and it was very obvious. So you got to fix that problem. I'm excited, though, because I don't think their problems are huge. I know they've got some contract situations to go through. We're not going to get into all that. But I think that there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful that the core of this team is going to continue to grow, and they have the resources still. I know they don't have the first-round pick, but they have the resources still to go off and replenish the cornerback room, to go off and add to the D-line, to go off and add to the O-line. They have those resources, and they've done well after the first round. So those are the priorities I hope for. I hope to see resources come. Like, I want to see 4 new cornerbacks in that room next year. I want to see him do exactly what he did to the safeties a couple years ago. Give me a free agent and 3 or 4 draft picks. Throw the whole kitchen sink at that position, and a couple of them will stick and be pretty good. Give me some more resources on the O-line and D-line. And, that's what I hope for this offseason. They're going to manage the cap. I think that you'll probably see Rashawn Gary exit. You'll see Jenkins exit. You'll see some of these predictable exits. Follow our guy Ken Ingalls. I think he's Ken Packers Cap on X Twitter. Phenomenal follow. He probably covers the Packers cap better than anybody on social media, maybe anybody in media. But he's the one that's going to be able to navigate those things and help us understand who might be at risk of being let go or trade or whatever it may be for cap situations, and who they probably afford to keep, all that kind of stuff. Great follow. Follow him. Thanks, Ken, for doing what you do, man. But yeah, that's the way I look at it. I'm optimistic this offseason they can do what they need to do to go forward and to put together a championship team next season as far as the players on the field. No, wait, hold up a second. It is almost 11 o'clock at night here in the central time zone, and we've got a cameo from someone we're shouting out, Mr. Ken Ingalls himself. That's pretty cool. Thanks for watching, man. I appreciate you. Awesome. And again, love your work. I'm glad you heard that. But yeah, so great work by Ken. Give him a follow, and you will be a smarter salary cap Packers fan. But I'm excited because I believe they still have the resources to field a championship team next year. I know there's going to be cap difficulties, but they'll figure it out. And like I said, they're good at drafting after the first round. If you can just find like 3 guys after the first round, which is totally reasonable, great. You're going to be better, and that's, a guy at each of those positions that may be a starter, an offensive line, defensive line, and a cornerback. That's not unreasonable. They've done that before. So I'm optimistic they can do what they need to do this offseason. I'm even optimistic that policy is going to navigate this situation with LaFleur and all of the rest of the organizational structure. I think he seems like a guy who's prepared for this kind of thing. And he's been around long enough. He's probably got a vision for what he wants to do already. We're sitting here thinking like this guy just got his hand of cards. He's been thinking about this for a while. So, look, we will always land in an optimistic place, man. I can't be down on my Packers for too long. It's not fun to be a fan when you're like that. So that's what we do, right? We find ways to be optimistic and think that this team's going to win a Super Bowl next season. So that's what we will do all off season. That is going to start here very soon at the Shrine Bowl. Heading back, doing some coverage there this season. It is at the Star here in Frisco, so I will be doing that in a couple weeks. I'm already kind of looking at the roster there, thinking about who the Packers might be looking at, and we might get some interviews with future Packers. Last year we got an interview with Nazir Stackhouse and got him to give us his first Go Pack Go on video. So you just never know who we're going to see out there. But if y'all have some guys that are at the Senior Bowl that you're curious about how they look, how's their week going, shout us out on Pack Weekly, let us know, and I'll keep an eye out and we'll give you some firsthand analysis there. And we're going to cover the draft pretty closely. We've been doing that the last couple of years. We like to dig into some of these deeper targets and prospects and really figure out what guys might be future Packers. It's a lot of fun. And April comes in the blink of an eye. We sit here and we dread the off season, but it usually goes by pretty quick. So hang with us. We're still going to be here every Monday night at 9:30. Streaming live, talking Pack, covering all the fun stuff there is to cover in the off season. Maybe we'll get Ken to come back and hang out with us and talk some salary cap nonsense. But we certainly appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. We have another season here in the books. Tim, you got any final thoughts on this one?
Just a rough ending, but yeah, and a lot of questions coming up, and I think we're going to get some answers this week, and then the other ones we're not going to know. We're not going to know until they're back playing football if they fix the internal issues, the inability to close out games and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be a long off season, longer than it's always a long off season. This one is going to be longer than usual, and it's a tough one. We have to take our medicine. The Bears fans they're going to be talking all off season. Yeah, we got to listen to it, and guess what? Yep. We got to take it. They beat us.
Take it.
So yeah, it's going to be a rough one, but we'll get through it. And I still, we got to believe. We got to believe this is our team. As angry as we are, as disappointed as we are, it'll get better. So we'll get through it together. It sucks. It sucks where they're at right now. It's a long time until we see them play real football again. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting times around Green Bay.
But we're going to get through it. We're going to be here.
We will. We'll be here. We'll be here.
Me and Tim on the Pack Weekly Pod every Monday, and we're gonna find our way. And I'm telling you, the Super Bowl's right around the corner. The future is still bright. The core of this team is very good. I mean, guys, we got Jordan Love. Man. We are so spoiled, and I think he's still gonna get better. I don't think he's done getting better. So let's have some fun, man. Let's look forward to the bright future. To heck with the bad memories. We're going to put that one away just like we put away all the other painful losses. The list is growing and getting a little bit too long. Hopefully that's the end of those. But hang out with us all off-season, guys. We're going to be having a lot of fun. We'll have some off-season news. Sometimes we get breaking news. We might jump in and do a quick live stream for some of that. We might do some live draft coverage. We've done a little bit of that in the past. So we're going to have fun, and we're going to talk a lot of Pack and keep doing that. So if you guys love this show, please tell a friend, bring another Packer fan, come hang out. We even accept other NFC North fans as well. The trolls are welcome in the comments. We have fun with them. But tell a friend. That's how the show grows. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel over there, the Packers Talk Network. That does do us a great deal of benefit. It doesn't cost you anything. Please, seriously, just jump over right now. Go do it. Spike that like button on this episode. Help people get through this tragic Bears loss with us. And we will be back with you guys again next week, Packers fans. As always, go Pack